Welcome to Murder of Crones. We are three Gen X women who are looking at life in the patriarchy through an intersectional feminist lens, and we do this one episode at a time. Today, I'm your host, Jennifer.
And I'm Zabrina.
And I'm Kori.
And today we're going to be talking about the medical research into menopause. So what I've been looking at is some of the studies that have been done, what areas they've been focusing on, what their findings are. I wanted to know a bit about HRT, like hormone replacement therapy, because that seems to be a little bit of a contested, like whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing or has side effects. And even doctors, it seems, don't have a really unified view on it. So I just kind of wanted to know, what does the research actually say about it? And it was revealing the research that I did. And of course, I'm not a doctor. This is not comprehensive. So my disclaimer is I am looking at medical reviews. I'm trying to look at reputable journals that have done studies and reading through the findings that they have there. But of course, my takeaway is a layperson's takeaway. I have no medical expertise, but from what I gather and what I'm able to get from the studies that I looked at, it's a little bit of a sad topic. Not as uplifting because it's unsurprisingly research into issues specifically affecting women is not as comprehensive as it might be.
So this is going to be a 5-minute episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. They don't
Short
believe in
and sweet.
menopause. Done. All done.
Yeah. Women use HRT. The end.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll probably die from it. But who would do the research to look? It's okay.
I don't know. Hard to say.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna find out.
We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out.
So what do you guys think?
I like it. Off kilter, on point. I like it. Guys, what does that mean?
No, seriously, what does it mean?
So actually, surprisingly, they began estrogen therapy in the early 1900s. So they started with an estrogen pill, and it was used in many of the wealthier, and by wealthier, I mean what we would maybe call developed nations. I'm thinking Europe, I'm thinking North America, might have been some parts of the East, like China might have had a bit, they were quite wealthy for a period. So that was pretty accepted until the 1960s. In 2002, a study found an increased risk in breast cancer in women. So this is where the landscape that we're in. So it was pretty common until the 1960s. It fell out of favor, fell out of use, and then was in the 90s was kind of resurging again in prescription. And then 2002 study found an increased correlation between the use of progesterone and estrogen with breast cancer. So this study also found that there was little benefit to heart disease. And so my side comment was, were we expecting a treatment for menopause to also benefit heart disease? Why is that a correlated issue, right? Usually well, Viagra doesn't seem to cure your strokes. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. An increased risk of stroke in estrogen-only treatment. So if you didn't have the progesterone and the estrogen, this is the 2002 study. And so then hormone replacement therapy basically dropped off in the early 2000s. Nobody was using it. So there was a mild resurgence in the 90s. So a long-term follow-up study showed that there was actually no increase in mortality and an increase in risks of fractures. And so even though usage is still lower, it's climbing, right? So the hormone replacement therapy is climbing with the finding that actually it doesn't increase mortality or there's been problems with the breast cancer study. So I'll get into that a little bit later, but
Okay.
it's not that study's been debunked. What basically they found was that when they looked at the actual data, though in the study there was an increase, looked like an increased risk of breast cancer in women that were taking hormone replacement therapy. what they actually found when they pulled apart the data was that for some reason there was a lower than average rate of breast cancer in the placebo group. And they don't know why that was. They couldn't explain what happened. So it was just statistically the average rate of breast cancer in the population was for some reason for this group of women that they did the study on lower when they weren't on the HRT. So the HRT women were actually on average the same as the regular population. And so they can't account for that. I'm kind of interested, and I'm like, well, what were the placebo women taking? That seems were they reducing their risk of breast cancer somehow? Or like, they don't talk about any correlated factors. Zab, you have something to say?
I do. So at this juncture, were women still taking estrogen orally when they did this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So this
Just
is
because there's a
early
big difference.
2000s. Yeah. No, that's a really good question. And that was so early 2000s, it was oral estrogen for the most part. And this has been the switch in recent years to topical estrogen, so transdermal, right? So you can have estrogen patch or a gel or a cream that you absorb through your skin is considered a much safer mode of absorption rather than digesting it internally. So yeah, that is a good question.
Okay.
So in 2005, the National Health Institute concluded that many, they just say many, and I'm like, could we put a number on that? Because like, are we talking, 100, 10,000? What are we talking? Many women experience few to no symptoms beyond changes in menstruation, vaginal dryness, and possible sleep disturbances when they are going through menopause. And I'm like, who are these women? Because I'm like, I have many friends going through menopause, and almost everyone has some, strange symptoms, right? Other than just like a little bit of vaginal dryness and some sleep disruption. I think one of the problems is recognizing what we consider a symptom, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
as we're discovering, right, the more you look into it, the more you realize there's a whole bunch of, I'm going to put air quotes around the idea of symptoms, but like declining hormones and aging, there's a whole bunch of possible complications that you could be experiencing that are not necessarily like either listened to by medical professionals or recognized as part of it. And
Which is
it's a
so
hard one.
hard too with when we consider like comorbidity, right? Like there's all these other health issues that start kicking in, and then we've got situational, stressors, political, environmental stress levels, all these other things. So really teasing out what is the menopausal journey is I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is definitely complicated. Like Zab, it seemed like
Yeah,
in
it's
our
very
little mini
complicated.
series, you were doing a whole lot of research into like the various different symptoms of menopause, right? So you probably know a bunch of the ones that maybe the medical professions don't recognize.
Well, and I don't know that the medical profession doesn't recognize them. I think they just haven't been studied enough. But then it makes you wonder if it has been studied, because why are all these women now saying that all these other things are symptoms of menopause? Like somebody's obviously telling them that that's part of menopause, right? Or is that largely due to social media and what women are discovering through talking amongst themselves and with other women? Like it's
Yeah.
really, it's incredibly interesting. And one thing I wanted to say is, I don't think anybody could say that's been through, hot flashes, not being able to sleep at night, vaginal dryness. Just those things alone can be so debilitating.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like, oh
Oh,
my
yeah.
gosh, you got to get up in the morning and go to sleep and you've had no rest. Then you're at work and you're like sweating and there's like all these things. I mean, and this sweating is just a symptom. I mean, you're going through a massive hormonal shift,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are big things for a lot of women. Just those alone, whether we factor in
Yeah.
the other things either, right? Like the joint pain and, I don't know, there's just like a plethora of other things happening, the brain fog, on and on it goes.
Yeah. The vision. You're right. Like
Yeah.
those alone, like vaginal dryness, they say it like a fact, but if you go from having a vibrant sex life and a really intimate relationship with your partner to like sex being painful and horrible or getting more yeast infections, all of these things are like that's a serious debilitating life occurrence, right? And this is where,
Yeah.
we say if men were experiencing, like they take erectile dysfunction really seriously in the medical community because they know that like men's sexual health is a really important part of their identity. But just as much for women, our
Yeah.
sexual health is just as important and also vital to a lot of our relationships. It's stressful enough as you age and as you're having hormone changes to not feel like you can connect in a pleasurable way with your partner. It can be really debilitating. That's really awful. So you're right. They aren't just incidental symptoms. For me, sleep loss, I was on a leave for 3 months from my job because I could not function. I'm on very light hormone therapy right now, but it has given me back my life in that way that I can at least sleep through the night and get up and then, like, okay, brain fog. But yeah, was it also sleep deprivation?
Yeah.
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 Those things are big. And I don't know, like I think I struggle with it all in the sense that, women never used to have hormone therapy and they get through it.
Mhm.
But then I think that over time, traditional medicinal cures, remedies have been
Mhm.
lost. And so we don't have access to that any longer. So,
Yeah.
and there's no studies
Well,
done on that.
and lifestyles change so much. Like
Yeah.
women generally, on average, people don't in our Western world get the exercise they need, get the diets that we used to have, So there's all those factors that have changed our
Mhm.
systems, and so we have probably way more intense symptoms and less capability to deal with them.
Yeah. And I think also there has to be acknowledged that women's pain and suffering has often been disregarded, especially when you are used to being the backbone of a family life, right? Like if you are the person
Mhm.
that is running the house and keeping the kids going and like taking care of your spouse and still getting up and going to work. Like, we joke about man flu, but it's not really that men are pathetic and weak when they get the flu. They just have the flu and they're sick. It's just that they're allowed to be sick. Whereas, like, we would like to curl up on the couch and have somebody feed us and bring us food and let us sleep for 3 days. Usually, we still have to feed the kids and we still have to go to our jobs or make dinner for the family or clean the house or walk the dog or whatever it is, right? So, I wonder
Mhm.
how many of our mothers and grandmothers experienced all of these really debilitating symptoms and just had to push through or thought they were going crazy or, like just had this, like, oh, I'm having a really hard time. And
Yeah.
maybe we're able to
They just
talk with their
powered through
girlfriends.
it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but you
Yeah.
just make it through, the tough whatever 5 to 15 years or whatever it is of
Yeah.
your
Oh, right.
menopause cycle, like how rough that would be.
Yeah.
And how many women I think really, really had a hard time with that. And also if you didn't know, like I didn't know that the like joint pain and like the menopause hip that we talk about now
Yeah.
was a symptom, right? I just thought like my mom has a bad hip and I'm betting this is the same thing. She's just never been treated for it because she didn't know it was related to her aging and loss of estrogen. So
Mhm.
she now has, she needs a hip replacement because like all of the muscles have been so contracted, the ligaments won't extend. It's like wrecked the
Right.
function of that hip. How many of our parents are like that, where they just didn't know that
Mhm.
was even thing. There's like, I'm getting arthritic and old, not that,
You guys,
oh, this is actually,
You just buck up and deal with it.
there's
Yeah.
a
yeah,
fly,
Yeah.
sorry, you guys. It's like going to town. It just like landed on my head there. And that was like, my breaking point. I was like, that is not happening. Mr. Fly,
the
like
Fair
I'm
fly's
not
enough.
like,
putting
I
up
would
with
like the
you.
microphone, please.
Deal.
Yeah.
That's
And so I
okay.
just want to jump in on that like level of acceptance and just kind of bucking up and dealing with
Yeah.
things. So little bit of a trigger warning because I'm going to talk about uh, sexual abuse. I
Hmm.
remember being at this dinner, and I was by far the youngest. There was all women at this dinner, just
Hmm.
by chance. It wasn't intentional. But anyways, it was some elderly woman, and somehow the topic of, having that creepy uncle came up, like
Oh yeah.
the uncle that your mom said, "Don't go near uncle," whatever. And all these women at the table, it was such a learning moment for me. All the women at the table had either experienced or had a sibling or friend experience some sort of molestation by a relative or family friend,
God.
and all of them were like, "You just deal with it." You stay away from those people, the woman in your family give you a little warning about it, and I was just blown away. Yeah, just the acceptance around it and just not talk about it, just deal with it in our own way. So,
Hmm.
yeah, how much of that translates into the way in which women have just dealt with
Yeah.
perimenopausal or
And it's so
menopausal
interesting that
symptoms.
it's never, don't invite Uncle so and so. He doesn't get to be around children or young women or whatever.
It's like
He's
you gotta avoid him.
Exactly. It
absolutely
was just like,
included.
don't
You
Yeah,
just have
upset
to
the
like watch
family.
out.
Don't say anything. Yeah,
yeah,
like just
Yeah.
keep
yeah,
the peace.
yeah,
Be a good girl.
Yeah.
You're right. So I think there's a
yeah.
culture around women being silent and there being
Mhm.
Yeah.
shame around admitting you're having a hard time or,
Yeah,
just allowing yourself that time if you need it
Yeah.
to rest. And, like we've talked about before, women do 80% of the unpaid labor in the household. And now
Hmm.
on top of that, we're also, most of us are working full time, if not part-time jobs. It's rare that you
Hmm.
have a one income family. Like it's just life isn't affordable if you do, unless
Yep.
you make a conscious effort to go without things. And even then, it's usually not attainable. I mean, think about
Yeah.
what groceries cost these days, right? So,
Right.
and then, you get into the fact that you've got an aging parent to take care of or
Yeah.
to help out. And you've got a woman who is immensely fatigued and going into this transition. And that's
Yeah.
definitely going to, I think, accelerate symptoms
mhm,
if you're not feeling well.
yeah,
For sure. This is the
Hmm.
thing with correlated and maybe correlated. Like those are two different things, right? Like, so correlated would be things that are happening at the same time that have a bearing on
Yeah.
your health, but they are not
mhm,
caused necessarily by like your menopause, but they are happening at the same time. Whereas correlated would be like actually attached, like connected to the symptoms of your menopause. So, your hot
mhm,
Hmm.
flashes versus brain fog. You're like, well, brain fog could be stress, overwhelm, fatigue, just burnout. And we also know that women, uh, I know several women that have refused to be silent about things like a sexual predator in their family, or about not suffering in silence and continuing to do the labor in the house when they are not well and they are not coping. And the general response from their family has been to punish them for that. Like the
Oh,
family doesn't want to look at it. The family has created a code of ethics around everybody shut up and put up. And if you are not playing that card, you are the one that's done something wrong, not everybody
yeah,
else. And it's an interesting response, I think, especially I think with things like what you were talking about, Kori, a family member who is potentially manipulative, abusive, calling that out disrupts the family fibers, right? And that's really difficult. So
mhm,
like women are often on a tightrope of our families. I think I don't want to speak for men because I think family and connection is very, very important to men, and I think we undervalue that in our society these days. But I know that women traditionally are the ones who build community, connect community, and require community for our own survival. If our men all left, we are left alone raising our children. We need our community of sisters. So
mhm,
isolation from a community, ostracization from your community, from your family is one of the worst punishments for us. So we are highly,
yeah,
highly motivated
mhm.
to keep the peace,
Yeah.
to keep everybody happy, to
Yeah.
not rock the boat. And I
Yeah.
think it's
And I
not
think,
just culturally ingrained. I think it's instinctive.
mhm.
yeah. And I
Survival.
think the sisterhood wound is huge too.
Mhm.
Women not supporting each other in the way that they used to or they did in the past. I noticed that so much in my life, even now, being fairly new to this community. And I think that community is so important in going through any kind of transformation in your life, whether it be transforming into being a mother or, transforming into the role of caring for an aging family member, or going through menopause. Sharing stories and
Yeah.
talking to one another is so important. And I don't see, honestly, a lot of women talking about menopause the way that we have. Just the three of us in general, some of the things that have come out. Like, I was noticing in the summertime that when my partner and I had sex, my orgasms weren't as strong, we'll say, as they used to be and as pleasurable. And then I
Yeah.
was talking to the two of you, and I found out that that's a symptom of menopause. I had no idea. And since going on hormone replacement therapy, that sensation is completely returned. But I didn't know that I was just like, oh, that was weird. Like, I didn't know. Like,
Yeah.
I'd never heard of that before in my life. It's crazy. I'm 53 years old. Why haven't I heard of this before? Because
Yeah.
it's not talked about, even amongst our peers. Like, I see it more online. It's kind of like that's like the keyboard warrior. Like, people are more open about
Yeah.
talking about things like that when they're not in a group of their peers. I find that fascinating, really. So I think women need to start talking amongst themselves in person, and finding out each other's experience in order for us to be able to help each other through this.
I think this is also new. The whole recognition of this stage of life being an actual thing, and our generation is a generation that's opening up these conversations. So I think it's still really new in the game, but it's starting to happen. And yeah, I think we're just at the very beginning of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, our podcast is going to be awesome for supporting these conversations.
Yeah. But you know what, Kori?
And I think
I would have to say I agree with you, and I don't agree with you on that point. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because I believe back in the era, say, of the witch burning, that kind of time period, I think women were more in touch with these phases of their
100%.
life and how
But
to
we
deal
were
with them.
burned at the stake and silenced.
Yeah, you talk about
So all the
indigenous
fear around it,
cultures.
right?
Yeah, for
We're
sure. Like,
shutting that down.
indigenous cultures
Yeah,
also
yeah,
knew a lot more about it. I'm sure had all sorts of different remedies and such. But you're
yeah,
right. I think when the patriarchy rose and we lost all of our
yeah,
female practitioners, we lost, there's so much information in regards to this. So yes, you're
yeah,
right in the sense that in this time, we're just learning, because everything has to be backed by science before it's real in the world
yeah,
we live in now. Um, the sad guru, I remember he was talking about how he's known in his belief system. He's very much into Ayurvedic medicines, and he was talking about in his belief system, fasting has always been a huge thing. And only now that it's been proven in Western culture, scientifically proven, is it now a thing, right? But they always knew, like, he always knew, and his family, and, the people he learned from. So it's, yeah,
it
that's an
is
interesting piece too.
it is a thing that I think we tend to discount traditional knowledge until it's scientifically proven. And so I would say two things. So one is, I just wanted to circle back to the talk about women's groups being dangerous. And I think that is both a function of female society as a whole. And not just like, I just find like the mean girl trope is a bit reductive, right? So I just want to make sure that we're like thinking about this, like belonging to a social group, especially for women, belonging to a group of other women is very key to our survival, primarily, like in our genes and our beings and who we are. Belonging with groups of other women is vital for these conversations, for these supports. And so I think the fear of being exiled is very real. And
yeah,
also, I think the power to exile and isolate is a social control. this is how we kept people in line traditionally, right? That would have been like, if you are being inappropriate, if you are being rude, if you are not being appreciative, you're overstepping, you could be kicked out of the group. So it is, I think, a natural thing to feel the fear. And I'm not saying that it doesn't get abused or that it's that like social power is misplaced or used in harmful ways. But I think that it is a very primitive sort of instinct that we have. We want to belong. We're not sure we belong. We also fundamentally distrust whether or not these people will be safe for us, because the cost of being exiled is very high. In another world, in another social group, that might be really deadly actually for you, right? So I think it is kind of, again, like we have some instinctual need to belong that I think makes sense. And I just don't want to trivialize it, right? Because I think it is actually very real, that fear that you could be kicked out. And then the other piece too I wanted to talk about, it's to sort of bring us back to the menopause conversation, was like what you were saying about the guru, where different cultures have different approaches. We don't tend to back up other knowledge unless Western science agrees with it. And so one of the studies that I found that I thought was a pretty interesting look was, it was based out of India, and they were looking at the rise in hormone replacement therapy and the medicalization of menopause. And there was a tone to the paper that was a little bit like, this is a natural aging process and we shouldn't be medicalizing it. But that's a reductive way to talk about it, because they were really acknowledging that there was some very strong benefits to hormone replacement therapy. But they also said that there is cultural beliefs around menopause are very formative to how we experience it. And so the authors suggested that in Indian culture, menopause was really celebrated among women because it was the end of your cycle. You were free from bleeding, you were free from childbirth. It was a liberating time for women. And so it was very much a time of celebration. I think that was true for a lot of, especially rural farm women and stuff at the turn of the century, that, like, I'm talking the late 1800s. It was exactly when we don't have birth control, when we don't have access to our own healthcare in the same way, or it's very poor healthcare, not menstruating anymore and not being at risk of childbirth anymore was a hugely liberating factor
What
for
an
women.
amazing thing.
Yeah. And that doesn't surprise me that it's
So
celebrated. So,
freeing.
and then I think that is an interesting, like, that fly.
I'm gonna like get it.
An interesting way to think about also how it's just
She's full on war with this fly.
I'm done.
Go
I'm done.
fly
Like that
swatter
next time
break.
that sucker lands, I'm getting it. Oh my gosh, it drives me crazy.
But so this brings me back to the fact that, like, a lot of these studies, the main study in the Lancet that I'm looking at, but I looked at a few different medical journals. They're very Eurocentric or North American centric, right? So they have a very white focused lens, which I think is where we see a lot of the push for the medicalized view of menopause. And there is that relation with, like, how we experience things is culturally affected. If everybody was celebrating menopause and we were all having parties, and probably if we ate a lot of turmeric, maybe our inflammation might be lower. Like, it's
Our
there
symptoms wouldn't be
are,
as bad.
yeah, it is possible that it might not
absolutely.
be.
That mind over matter.
Yeah. So this is a Western focused look. Well, we will carry on, you guys. We took a long side journey. So we talked about some of the symptoms, and that they were unsure about them. Look up and Zab.
She's out of control.
I can't. I gotta
Just
try
doing
to
her
kill
own thing
it.
over there.
Oh, damn it! I hit
Oh
it
my
and
God.
it got away.
Yeah, this is the level of professionalism we're at.
I just. Oh my gosh! I don't know where it is, but maybe it's not gonna mess with me anymore.
Oh, fuck, I hope
You
not.
don't even know. It just keeps landing on my face and in my hair, and I'm all like,
I did see it sitting on your head for a bit.
"Did you?"
Just like quietly, like, swatting.
Yes.
It's me. It's terrible. I'm fine. But no, I totally think that it has so much to do with the way that we look at it and our perception in life. Absolutely. And I've been I'm excited to be going through menopause and being in this stage of my life. But I also, with the level of activity I have in my life, I can't be going without sleep night after night after night and
Yeah.
just, having all these hot flashes in the day that are like super disruptive. It's very difficult, but
Yeah.
I definitely do struggle with the hormone replacement therapy stuff as well, because the hormone specialist I see believes it to be a very safe thing to take, and that's good for
Yeah.
your heart health and your bone health and so many things, right? You don't get the vaginal dryness or the
hmm
vaginal atrophy, all those pieces. But then
hmm
there are other studies that show that maybe it's not so good for you. And I find it interesting because when I go pick up
We
my
will get
estrogen
to
right now
it.
at the pharmacy, they delve it out in little Ziploc bags because they're low on it. That's how many people
Yeah.
are taking it. So there's like a shortage of
Wild.
it. Yeah. Like I'll get like a week's worth in a
Weird.
baggie that they've taken out of the box, and stuff. So now,
Oh my
and it
God.
makes me just
Interesting.
think like, is this one of those trend things where everybody's pushing it? And it makes me worried because we know in the past when people have been experimented on with pharmaceuticals, it hasn't gone well. And so I
Yeah.
do have worries about it, right?
Okay, so to bring us back to the medical research, because to your point, Zab, about what the studies show, there obviously are some conflicting studies, but I think the overwhelming research is that hormone replacement therapy is largely beneficial, and I will get to it. So in 2018, they did a longitudinal study in the US that looked at symptoms of menopause, but they only looked at variations in menstruation and flow and remain uncertain about other symptoms. It's kind of, what are we looking for? What do we consider a symptom of menopause? So later studies have wondered if depression, anxiety, sleep disturbance, cognitive strain, achy joints, stiffness, painful intercourse, among other symptoms, are connected, and they remain uncertain. So
Interesting.
I think what they're saying there is that they have not done medical research. I think they're fairly sure that they are connected, but they have not done studies on it. I know. So this is the thing too, is
Wow.
like,
So
what
interesting.
are they actually looking at when they do these studies, right? Because if they're only looking at like your menstrual flow and whether or not you have, sleep
Yeah.
disturbances, that's not sufficient, right? That's not
No.
sufficient.
Yeah.
In 2021, Menopause Priority Setting Partnership was launched, establishing priorities for future medical research by surveying people with lived experience with menopause, right? So they're looking for people with uteruses that have not just owned a uterus, but gone through menopause.
Okay.
So this is not a medical research project. This is only picking areas for medical research to look at. This is in, I believe, Australia. So this was October 2024. They managed to narrow down their priority areas to research to 10. So they launched this like, let's examine what areas we should look at, which I mean, I think it's very important to
For
actually
sure.
look at what's been researched, what needs to be researched, and like try to target areas that have gaps or that need
Yeah.
further research. So 2021, they launched that, like, what should we look at?
Yep.
2024, they had it narrowed down to 10 topics. So some of the focus areas were, does peri or menopause lead to cognitive problems? If yes, why and how do we help? Why and how is sleep affected? A variety of concerns about hormone therapy. So is it safe for people with heart disease, cancer? Does it correlate to risks of dementia? Are there effective and safe alternatives? I mean, I understand looking at hormone therapy and are there any negative side effects? Does it impact other parts of our body? Like maybe it treats menopause, but it might have negative impacts on other areas of health. I understand that, but I find it very interesting that that's really such a primary focus, that like the
Well,
correlated
it's a
aspects.
pharmaceutical company push.
Well, but it's also like, I feel like other diseases like heart disease, they'll look at just how does it help the heart, and they might sort of anecdotally be aware of other side effects. But like if it helps heart disease, that drug will get approved and it will get, distributed. And, 15 years down the road,
I
they'd be like,
know.
oh, well, actually, it has like, this risk
Yeah.
factor, or we find,
Yeah.
but like for some reason with menopause medication, they're trying to determine what other ways it impacts our body before they start administering it. And I, on the one hand,
But
kind of appreciate that, but on the other hand, I'm like,
they do that with any medication, do they not? It's just they don't have like the longitudinal studies to be able
well,
to
yeah,
give much.
Longitudinal.
I think longitude.
Thank you.
That's so
But
great.
true, right? I mean, they do. That's the ticky boxes they have to do to be approved.
Yeah, but I think I just don't feel like they have the specificity of ticky boxes. So they might be looking. So say we're looking at something to improve cardiovascular health. They might look at a few things that they know might go with that, like strokes, incidence of strokes, or blood clots, or something that might be correlated in that way. But they are not necessarily going out of their way in their medical research to tick off, like, does it increase cancer? Does it increase this? Is there a higher risk of fractures? Is there a higher risk? It seems like menopause studies, there's a lot of things that they're concerned about: stroke and heart disease and fractures and osteoporosis and dementia and cancer. And those studies are so wide ranging and comprehensive. Like, that takes years to unpack those correlations, right? Whereas I don't feel like with other medication, and maybe it's because it's hormone based. So I don't know if there's a reason for that, but it just sort of irks me a little bit that, like, they won't move ahead with a medication that seems to be effective for the purpose that it's designed for, until they can certify that it doesn't do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, F, G, R. I'm like, okay, that seems very over the top. But I might be talking on my ass because I am not a medical researcher.
Now, Jen, those medications, are they different than what we're looking at right now, as like the estrogen progesterone type, or like sometimes testosterone is prescribed?
So right now, it seems like primarily when they're talking about hormone replacement therapy, they are talking about estrogen progesterone combination, either like sometimes just estrogen, sometimes estrogen progesterone. I think largely the studies have concluded that estrogen progesterone combination is ideal. Estrogen alone is less effective. So that seems to be the majority of what they're talking about. I think also in the last decade, at least, most of the estrogen has been transdermal. So you're not taking a pill, right? So that seems to be the majority of what they're talking about. This in October 2024, they have their areas of focus. So basically the research is starting now. It's been a year, and it'll probably be a decade before we have anything reasonable to look forward to, right? Long past our time, but maybe in time for our daughters. Challenges of studying people experiencing peri and menopause is that there are frequent concurrent life conditions that are difficult to isolate. So this is a bit what you were talking about, Zab. It is common for these people to be caring for children at home still, taking responsibility for aging parents, balancing paid employment with unpaid labor and other factors. So women doing the majority of the housework, the majority of the emotional labor in the house, having, reached a point in their jobs where sometimes they're quite pressured, like they have a lot of expectations being put on them. And we know that most of these women do not have young children at home, but we also know that adult children need a lot of support, like all of the stuff that goes with adulting, right? All of these things combine to make it so that women are experiencing a lot of stressors, a lot of external pressures, a lot of internal pressures that are impacting their health, the quality of their life. So when you are studying menopause, I think what we ultimately need is a large enough sample size. You need single women. You need women that don't have children. You need women whose parents are already dead. You need, or, parents who are super healthy and don't need their help, right? You need this wide
Cancer
sample
survivors.
of women. Well, like we talk about, our friend who had cervical cancer and had a full hysterectomy, ovectomy when she was in her 30s, and then is in full menopause, right? Thrown into it immediately. I mean, that's a whole other experience of menopause. those women would be super valuable to look at in the study because their experience of this would be very different. So
Yeah.
I think we just need a broad enough sample size. You need tens of thousands of women for this study
Yeah.
to really be able to isolate what is menopause and what is a concurrent life event that is adding stress and pressure and,
Yeah.
making your life more challenging as you age. So there are many debates about HRT from estrogen only to combined estrogen progesterone, as well as how it is taken. Transdermal estrogen seems to be the safest, as we talked about. Combined treatments often have a stronger benefit, but there are some areas that are higher risk. And one of the things that was finding frustrating is they kept saying like there are areas of higher risk, but I couldn't really isolate what those areas were. Right. So I'm like, well, what are the higher risks? Are we talking cancer?
Yeah.
Are we talking dementia? Are we talking? I don't know that we have a ton of conclusive data on that area. So an observational study of the data of the Women's Health Initiative concluded that women who started HRT within 10 years of menopause, so I don't know if that means before, after, or during, but they had a 30% lower mortality overall, just to women who did not take HRT. And they had a 48% lower coronary heart disease incidence, and there was no effect on the risk of stroke. So to me, I'm like, those are pretty bonkers numbers. 30% lower mortality across the board is crazy. That's so statistically significant that I can't believe that we're not just saying you should be on HRT.
But what was the sample study size?
So yeah, it's an observational study. So they would have been looking at data, from like self-reporting and data from hospitals and doctors, as opposed to
Right.
just an experiment. The Lancet had an article in 1999 that said that they have noticed that the mortality rate is lower from 30 to 50% in women who use HRT. So this would have been still with the estrogen pills, not the estrogen like transdermal
Wow.
estrogen. Even that 30 to 50% reduced
That's a
mortality
lot.
in
Yeah.
women that use HRT. But then they followed it up with this quote that I thought, this is wild. It is important to note that the value individual women place on various health outcomes associated with hormone replacement therapy may differ. Okay, so 30 to 50% lower mortality rate, but we shouldn't speak for women how they value their health outcomes. And I'm like, what do you mean living longer? Like some women value living longer more than others? Like you
Mm,
like I wanted to like tap on the microphone a little bit and be like,
sure.
question from the
Interesting.
back. Like a wild. Let's not speak for all women that they might want to live. I don't know. What is
That is so strange, isn't
so
it?
yeah, I know. I
Interesting.
just like I read it a couple times. Like I glanced over it the first time and I was like, wait a minute, what are you saying? And
Yeah.
then I was like,
Interesting.
yeah, that the value individual women place on various health outcomes associated with hormone replacement therapy may differ. And I'm like, but we've just said that the health outcome generally is 30 to 50% lower mortality.
That's a crazy number.
It is wild.
30
Like
to
that's
50.
what I'm saying is
That
like
is.
we talk about the complications and whether or not it's a benefit and it doesn't have an impact on dementia. And I don't know, maybe 30 to 50% is women that are super healthy and wildly demented. I don't know, like maybe that's what they're talking about with the value that you
Yeah.
place on certain
Yeah.
health outcomes. I guess my thing is like if we can determine that there's a 30 to 50% increase in life expectancy or like, lower mortality,
Yeah.
surely we could also figure out what are those women dying from? Like, are they living with dementia? Like, where are we getting this
What's the
information from? There
quality of
must be
life?
other data. Yeah,
Yeah.
like what are they living with? And what are the risks that they keep talking about? Because the risks seem so vague. And I don't know if I just haven't found the right study that really talks about it, but I'm like, what are the other risks? Like if I'm improving my life, I'm improving my experience of menopause. The risks must be pretty dire, or they just don't take women's health very seriously. And a 30 to
It's good
50%
enough.
increase in life is like not statistically significant enough to like make it
Yeah.
across the board recommended by doctors when you are experiencing problems with your menopause.
Or maybe the doctors are questioning the studies, right?
Yeah. Yeah, which is, I mean, I guess that's fair too. That's their job. So one challenge, which is a little bit what we've talked about, is determining which ailments are being monitored and treated. Many studies look at connected but not necessarily correlated issues: cancer, osteoporosis, heart disease, thromboembolic diseases. So that's like involving your veins, so like angina, myocardial infarction. Then they have hypertension, stroke. Each treatment might benefit one illness and have adverse effects on the other. And that was my question there, was like, do we do this with all our other medication? Do we look at how every other factor in our body is impacted, right? And I just don't think we do to the same degree. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's slow, right? It's slow to try and do those things and want informed consent. I want to know if the hormone replacement therapy I've been prescribed is going to potentially have side effects that could cause some serious problems and complications. I do want to know those things. I feel like it feels like foot dragging to me. Like, yeah, we'll get there. We've got so many other factors to consider. We don't want to say for sure one way or another. Like, it's a little like they want to wash their hands of signing off on hormone replacement therapy.
They don't know enough to like be
Yeah.
100% sure, because it sounds like studies are really just starting to happen on this, right?
Yeah, which is fair, but also I'm like, come on, man. Like, it's 2025 and we're just acknowledging that like maybe menopause is a struggle for women. Like, it
Yeah.
just seems 30 years
Yeah.
behind the 8 ball, if not
Yeah.
more, right? Like, it's like, come on,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to note, women over 40 are the fastest growing sector in the paid workforce. These are valuable social and economic contributors, but menopause is still not understood or supported in many workplaces. A lot of these women, when their children are gone, they are going back to work or moving from part-time to full-time. They are really important economic contributors, right? So we are valuable, and then our workforce doesn't, like they'll have temperature controls. So like we were talking about how in certain office buildings, they will be colder because it's based on the mean temperature that's comfortable for men. And women have a different body temperature and sometimes off by several degrees. So men will be walking around in short sleeves and shorts or light pants, and women are wearing hoodies and sweaters and shawls in the same work environment because they don't consider that women actually have a different body temperature need than men. And this can be even female dominated workspaces. So there's factors like that I know are not deliberate, but they are the unconscious bias that the patriarchy establishes, that men are the sample size, right? Men are the people that we look to for the data, and then we assume that women are the same. So the UN in 2023 and the World Health Organization in 2021 found out that about 90% of people hold gender biases and more than 50% hold ageist beliefs. So this again affects how older women are perceived in the workforce and in our lives, right? Whether or not what issues are happening for us matter. So social perceptions affect the experience as well as the treatment available and the funding that goes into research. Like, are they going to put money into this with, elderly women? I love how I just called us elderly. Are you ready for the geriatricness?
Oh my God.
So we talked about the pushback on the medicalization of menopause, and that this recent push for HRT is actually just pharmaceutical companies profiting off of what should be a natural aging process for women. I do resent that a little bit because I think studies have shown that there's very clear benefits to women. And I feel like saying we should age naturally and accept it, like age gracefully, is a little bit paternalistic. Like, it's a little bit patting us on the head and telling us to go back into the kitchen and make a sandwich. Like, oh, honey.
But I do feel there's a little bit of validity there. So when I went to speak to my doctor about HRT, I was just really inquiring. I'm not at a place where I would push for it right now, but his perspective was this is a natural process. You need to get out there, get your blood pumping, your chemicals in your brain will start balancing things out. There's a lot of things we can do within our own lives to be proactive around it. And he pointed out how social media, how media in general is focusing and targeting menopause right now as the hottest topic. And his perspective was that it is a big pharmaceutical push. So while he wasn't opposed to, down the line, if I do need it, his concern was more that there's just so many people pivoting again because we don't know exactly what is perimenopausal, menopausal symptoms and not, and just jumping on it for the relief. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, and
complicated.
I do agree. Like, I don't
It
think
is.
it's an unfounded criticism. I just think
Mhm.
that, like, both things can be true. That
Yeah, for
hormone
sure.
support for menopause really can be life changing for many women, but also that, like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
we don't necessarily need to jump to it, right? So,
Yeah.
for a good year, I found acupuncture to be really, really
Mhm.
helpful for, like, not being able to sleep and for relieving some of my menopause symptoms. Exercise, good diet, taking, things like turmeric for
Mhm.
inflammation. There's all sorts of things that I think can be really helpful and beneficial and sustaining rather than just leaping onto the hormone therapy. But I resent the idea that we should just age gracefully and naturally when
Just deal
it
with it.
really is
Yeah.
radically difficult for many, many women and radically life altering for many, many women.
Your body, your choice, right? That's always
Choice,
important to
absolutely.
acknowledge, right? But I also think that what was okay for one generation can be completely different
Hmm.
for another based on their roles in
Mhm.
society and what's expected of them, among
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
many other factors, right? But there's so much more to it than
Yeah.
just saying somebody else did it, so your generation should too. Like
Mhm.
anything, there's a way bigger picture to that
Yeah,
too.
my
So
perspective is I've worked really hard in my life to get me where I am, and I don't wanna have to sacrifice my quality of life for what's remaining. So,
Yeah.
mhm,
if I need to go on a HRT, I'm gonna fucking go on HRT. Like, I am not
Yeah.
going to
yeah.
waste my time around it because why?
Yeah.
Why would I be so tortured?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I love that you said that because
Yeah.
that's how
And
I feel about it too. My whole life, I went natural. Like you guys know me. Like I fought an autoimmune disease
Mhm.
naturally and didn't take prednisone and like did it all with, naturopath and just like I really,
Yeah.
looked at things on a deeper level and really, really worked hard to not have to take any kind of pharmaceuticals. But like Kori said, at this juncture in my life, I'm like, screw it. I don't want to fight my way through this. If there's something that can make this
Yeah.
easier for
Mhm.
me and that can make me have quality of life right now because I'm loving life right now, but I do realize that I have less years ahead of me than I do behind me. And I want to optimize those
Mhm.
years.
And the other thing too is that we have to acknowledge hormone replacement therapy is not a forever thing. It is like for the
Mhm.
duration of your menopause. And that could be 5 years, it could be 15 years, right? It's not
Mhm.
this medication that we're taking. And I think, like Kori, like, you're smart to be waiting until it becomes a need. And I'm doing
Yeah.
similar, like I am on, so I did acupuncture for a year. And then when it stopped being as effective, I'm on a very low dose right now. And I'm probably going to be transitioning to a more aggressive dose, but I think I am still like trying to ride out the long road potentially ahead of me. I'm 49. I feel like I will probably have a good decade of menopause, so I'm trying to pace myself and not leap onto the hormone therapy before I've exhausted all other options. I don't want to sacrifice my quality of life. I still need to be a professional and get up and go to work. I spent an
Mhm.
entire year where I would say 5 nights a week I would go to bed at midnight, get up at 2 in the morning, go back to sleep at 5:30, and then get up and go to work at 6:30.
I
That is
know.
not sustainable. That is not sustainable.
It's not
It's a
sustainable when you
torture.
got to work. We're in a
Yeah.
man's world, man. Like you don't get to just take a
Yeah.
menopause day.
The view that, like, the normative function of declining hormones should not be seen as a deficiency is that thread that, like, we should not be medicalizing this, that it is normal. And I do agree that it is normal, but also there's a whole bunch of things that are normal that we still treat. Like, Alzheimer's is
Mhm.
normal. we still treat it. We understand that loss of vision
Erectile
is a normal
dysfunction.
thing, right? There are so many things that we recognize as a normal part of aging or a normal part of life, and yet we treat it. We know that we can treat these things and make it better for people. And so why would we not be doing that? So I wanted to end with talking about some new breakthroughs in hormone treatments or menopause treatment that I thought were really interesting and I've heard kind of nothing about, and I would love to know more. So there's neurokinin B, NKB for short. It's signaling pathways for vasomotor symptoms like hot flashes. So, you're like the vasomotor would be the circulatory system in your body, right? It's not a hormone. It is designed to help your body recognize or like rewire those signals so that you're not flashing hot. And I'm like, it's kind of brilliant. Yeah, it says it targets signaling pathways. So, like I guess, whatever's triggering those hot flashes, it attacks that piece. And then there's fezolinetant. I don't know what I said. Fezolinetant.
Just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, I know, non-hormone treatment that targets nerves responsible for blood vessel responses to help with genitourinary symptoms. So that would be like vaginal dryness and a vaginal atrophy, right? And like weak bladder, right? Getting up and peeing at night, all of those things. So again, non-hormonal. Yeah, like those two pieces right there, like to control your hot flashes and help with vaginal dryness, urinary incontinence. That's huge, right? If I can deal with those things, that takes a huge load of the symptoms off my plate that are really life disrupting. So there are some therapies that are out there that are maybe just coming to the fore that have not, I don't know if they just haven't had enough research done on them, but it seems like other countries are using these pretty extensively. So hopefully we'll start seeing those be more widely available and widely prescribed. Maybe it's a thing that you can ask about, but anyway, the long and the short of my depressing study was that medical research is lacking. and
But you knew that going in.
Yeah, not sort of what I expected. It was like, let's delve into this dark topic of why they don't care about menopause symptoms.
Well, I think in a perfect world, wouldn't it be nice if we could just create a rites of passage in our Western world around this phase of life and have it supported so that we can have complete autonomy how we move through it? Be so nice to be able
Supported
to ride it and to be able to
community,
to be able to pull back on work and and just have the support and the conversations and the space and the air conditioning or the heat, whatever we need.
Yeah, whatever is needed. I know, all of the above.
I think it's interesting how women end up being so much further behind their male counterparts due to birthing children. And due to that, generally women aren't specializing in things the way that men are in their, late 20s to late 30s. And I like that we can use hormone therapy later on in life so that we have the opportunity to excel in our careers and to do all the great things that we were destined and meant to do as women. And I'm excited to see all the up and coming thrones taking their power back and doing miraculous things.
So just wanted to thank you for coming to my TED Talk on menopause. And I really treasure and value our chats, you guys. And I hope other people enjoyed it too. So
amazing.
just want
Great job, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
And I want to remind all of our listeners to please like and subscribe. Please follow us on all of our socials. We have a YouTube channel. We are available on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. And we are on Rogers TV if you are local to the Kootenays and Okanagan Valley.
And I would like to thank Dennison Design for allowing me to use this beautiful space that you see me sitting in right now. They are an interior design studio specializing in custom millwork and finishes. They are located out of Castlegar and Vancouver, BC. And there's a storefront where you can buy housewares, which is what I'm sitting in right now in Castlegar. You can find them at www.denisondesign.com. Thanks for listening to us today. We appreciate all of you. Love you guys. Bye.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye.